5. Number 5 is freedom of speech is the practical implementation of acknowledging our fallibility. Denying a freedom of speech is asserting infallibility. So this is actually what we were just talking about of, if I'm not uh, denying freedom of speech gives you that insulation of I don't need the feedback. I don't need to feel the pressure, right? And then uh, allowing freedom of speech is allowing, criticism, right? And so if we're allowing that, then we are saying we need criticism, we are fallible, we need to be able to sort things out and push on each other and move and adjust and take account of things. Whereas if we're saying, nope, you can't have freedom of speech, you can't say these things, you can't object to this, you're limited in these ways, that's saying, well, we know the answer in this case, so no more talk about it, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Not allowing for dissenting opinions and challenging. Yeah. It's, and once again, it's a balance of sorts. It's like at the end of the day, you do end up having to make decisions and accepting that what we're going to do is going to be probably not the best thing. And knowing when to make that, when to cut your losses and just do it right then. Um, there's definitely something to be said about there is a time and place for that.
Hmm.
And if you never allow for dissenting opinions, and especially during times of prolonged crises, or at least perceived prolonged crises, someone's just in that state. We don't have time. We don't have
Yeah.
time for, or like it's a threat. If you're perceiving such a big threat on the outside all the time, you may never feel safe enough to be able to be open-minded to other points of view that could be conflicting to your own.
Yeah, totally.
And I see that being the case with a lot of the political, I'm going to use a Ryan clinical jargon term, shenanigans that's out there of just like, yeah, it just feels like if anyone offers a counterpoint of view to your average Joe or Jane, they're going to perceive that as like a, a serious threat and get kind of scared about it and immediately counterattack rather than hold space for and explore and figure out how to integrate what could be helpful in a counterpoint.
So that something Stephen had been saying and something you said brought this thing to mind a couple times for me. So I just want to give a shout out to this podcast I just listened to yesterday. It's called The Best Conversation About History You've Ever Heard. It's on trigonometry, and they're hosting Dominic Sandbrook, who's a historian and is on the podcast. The rest is history with Tom Holland. So I highly recommend that to both of you and to anyone.
Wait, Spider-Man?
No, the other Tom Holland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the better Tom
Uh,
Holland.
a better time.
Anyhow, that a little bit of an aside, but yeah, and that's why point four comes before point five, right? That's my claim is that the people who are doing that, who are saying, uh, like things are so bad, we need this, and are clinging so tightly to what they think they know, I believe they're enacting and showing that they have this faith in the infallible nature of whatever they've chosen.
Hmm.
And so the point before that is designed to say, okay, let's admit that we're fallible and admit that uh, we need adjustments and whatnot. Now I think there's still a hump to cross of like how do you how do you do that in practice? What does that look like? And I think there might be deeper deeper things that enable that in a person. But as best we can, I want we recognize the fallibility of ourselves, then that should bring us to the space of being much more okay with freedom of speech, right?
Restriction. Somebody tells you that you can't do something, I mean, you kind of want to do it. I mean, unless, like, I mean, if somebody says, hey, fentanyl's bad, I don't really need, like, I can just see somebody, like a picture of somebody doing it, and that's enough for me to know not to do it. But like, in terms of my observations, there's much more upside to being able to say what you want. I mean, sure, some people say some really crazy stuff, but I shouldn't be told that I can't listen to something crazy. I don't need Vince Vaughn and old school to go around and give me earmuffs. I can listen to the crazy cat lady down the corner speaking jargon and nod my head and say, yeah, you know what, that's cool, but like not really, but just to be nice. I don't have to like, you're crazy, or like la 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 la, like sure. We need to be wary of what it is that we're listening to, what it is that we're seeing. We need to protect our eye gates. We need to protect our ear gates. We don't want to overly expose ourselves to things that could seep into us on a subconscious level, like negative affirmations, or we see certain billboards or certain things when we're not really focusing, we're not present, and then it just kind of layers in. So we got to be mindful of that. But that's not like me saying like, you know, burn all the trash cans and like or saying something violent like that's not apt to get people to do that. That's you know I mean I think there needs to be certain lines, right? Like knowing kind of that people in a large gathering can be in kind of a herd mentality. And if you say certain words, it's known that people in a herd mentality will freak out if you say certain words. And so fine, just for the benefit of people, you don't want to say certain things that'll get people, in a state of violence, of losing their minds. But if we're saying like, hey, you can't state a political point or you can't say that you can't do this, that often leads to a vulnerability in that which is saying you can't question. And that like kind of leads, it's like you're not being vulnerable, you're not being authentic. You're saying that I can't listen to something or I can't say something. And that kind of sparks curiosity. And my last point is this is, you know, the ability to say what you want, like whether or not I agree with it or not, if you look at South Park's recent presentation of Donald Trump, that's like perfect free speech, right? That's like literally saying the emperor has no clothes. Whether you agree with this or not, it's a perfect exercise of freedom of speech. You can laugh at it or not, but you're not going to go to jail, you're not going to lose your head over it. And that's as it should be, right? That's not going to make a whole bunch of people, lose their minds. It's not going to completely erode the fabric of society. And I think that people need to get an understanding of that again within potential differences within one another. We don't want to offend anybody, and so then nothing's funny.
Hmm.
But I have never talked to one person, not a single person, that said that Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder was offensive. But if you think about it, that should be like the most offensive thing in the history of comedy. And that's why we're not having any comedy is for things like Tropic Thunder. But who hates who hates Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, And so it's when you say there's a problem enough times, a problem will be generated. And so if everyone has the ability to have free speech and just say things, it'll just things just naturally balance out. If you have somebody come in and say, you can't say causing a ruckus, that's when things start to rock and that's when you start shaking things up. And that's in this regard, I don't think that's a good thing when we start saying you can't say certain things.
Yeah.